Fed and caffeinated. This should be good. Check 1 2. All right, here we're going to work on Mocha Tracking in After Effects for our Deja Vu project today. Here we go. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a look at our shot. So here's our shot. You can see Mellow there with the slate. We obviously don't need that part. Let's go ahead and kind of scrub through it. Let's find the part we care about. So we're only going to do a portion of this. We're not going to do the whole thing because it's like 50 seconds long. Let's go out to about here. So I'm at about 45 seconds. I'm going to put my out point there and then my in point. I'm going to back this up a little bit. And I'm going to set my in point at like 27-ish seconds. There we go. So we have some stuff to work on. All right, then let's take our shot and create a new composition with it by dropping it on the little composition tab in the project window. And then let's start rocking and rolling on this bad boy. 27, let's go 25%. Okay. So we've got our shot, and this is a drone shot, so it kind of starts moving forward. We briefly touched on camera tracking in After Effects last time, but I think this is a good culprit for some planar tracking inside of Mocha. And what are we trying to do? So that's the next kind of important thing. So what I would like to do is try to fill in this road and make it look a little like it's less traveled, like there hasn't been traffic running in and out of this road constantly forever and ever. And so to do that, what I did is I brought in this texture file, which is just a picture of some snow. Honestly, what I'd like to do before I start actually using this is I'd bring it into Photoshop, clean all this stuff up, get rid of the little stick right here using Content Aware Fill, and make it a clean texture plate that we can just drop in and use. We're going to skip that part for now. I want to get to the part where we start learning how to planar track inside of Mocha. So let's go back to our shot. So here we go. We've got our shot. It's relatively on the long side. So I think what I want to do is I want to try to start. I want to start a little bit backwards. Now let's start at the back end and just take a peek at it, because we can lay all this stuff in right here and start working on the back end of this shot. Now Riley asked me earlier, are we going to have to rotoscope their feet and everything? Yes. Yes, you will. You will have to rotoscope their feet and everything. It's the way it works. We're not going to do that in this particular lecture because we've already covered some of that rotoscoping work. But that is something that you would have to do to make this shot viable in order to make it so that when Meredith walks over this big open plate of black right there, that we, don't see that stuff. So let's do this. To make it simple, why don't we just scrub past where our actors are right here. We'll work on the back end of this and we'll learn the basics of tracking this stuff in and dropping the texture in and kind of making this work. So everybody's scrubbed to about 40 seconds in wherever their heads pop off the screen. And let's just do this. Let's just reset our ins and outs. So I've double clicked on my footage and I can see my in and out right there. I'm just going to go ahead and set the in there, and I'm going to create a new composition from that instead, and that's what we'll work with. So this is going to be Mocha Track Test Snow. I'm just going to delete the other one so that we don't have conflicting compositions, and now we're just looking at kind of the back end of this shot. So when we talked at the beginning of class about what we wanted to do here, we talked about not only filling in the snow to make it look like it's, kind of unspoiled snowy stuff, but also making maybe some like crumbled areas in the building, things like that, some just a little bit of destruction to make this look like it's been distressed a little bit. So we might play around with that too to see if we can figure out how to make that happen. All right, so we've got our shot. We're going to start. Basically what we want to do is we want to track the snow into these big open areas where we can see pavement and tire treads and all that good stuff. So let's do this. Let's add Mocha to our shot. So I'm going into animation, and I'm going to say track and Boris effects Mocha. And because we did this last week, you know that after we do that, we want to click on the Mocha tab, and that will open up the Mocha interface. You can go ahead and click register later if that pops up. I'm going to say decide later on the user statistics. And we're going to start working with this. So right now, if you guys are seeing anything different than mine, that might be because you are in the Essentials view. If you would like, you can go to the Classic view, which will give you all the bells and whistles of all the things. But let's do this. Let's just try it in Essentials and see how far we can get. All right, so the first thing that we want to do is we kind of want to like set an area of where we're going to be tracking. Now, I don't want to do this all at one time. What we did last week with our rotoscoping is we kind of broke the rotoscoping into pieces, right? We had sections that we were working on tracking in, and we'd kind of fill it in as we go, right? So let's do this. Let's track the foreground first. And what we'll do is we'll kind of set this up, we'll track the foreground, we'll lay in our texture, we'll see how things look, we'll adjust, and we'll go from there, and we'll keep filling in more and more of the spaces and kind of tracking them on an individual basis until we kind of fill all that stuff in and make it look right. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to go ahead and we need to lay in our X-spline for tracking. So we're going to go ahead and grab the X-spline tool, and I'm just going to kind of draw a nice selection, and I'm going outside the border of the road here. So for last week, we were being really kind of specific with our track. This week, we're going to be a little more general, and we're going to kind of just select a nice area like so for tracking. And then let's do this too. Go up to the arrow key. Oh, it doesn't have the arrow key in this one. All right, well, we're going to go with this. We can play with this in After Effects too. All right, so let's do this too. So there's a couple other tools that we can use to kind of help orient our track, right? We can set our skew to kind of help orient the perspective of whatever we might be tracking into this box. So I'm kind of grabbing the S tool for, what is it, show planar surfaces. And I'm letting it know that this is going to be kind of this is what the perspective is going to look like in our shot. Okay, and now that we have that done, let's go ahead and track this forward and see how it goes. So in the track motion options, we've got transition, scale, rotation, skew. Let's add perspective into that mix right here. So I just clicked on the persp button, and we're going to call this layer. I'm going to call this Winter Road Foreground 1. And then I'm going to save this before we even get started. And then let's go ahead and track this guy and see what happens. And away we go. All right, so we have the tracking data in. We went back over to After Effects, and now what we're doing is we're kind of laying in our snow layer. So I've got this snow layer right here. So what I kind of want to do is I want to almost like mask this off. I don't need these giant drifts right here in the foreground. Those are probably a little too big. So I'm going to go for this area that's a little smoother right here at the top of my photo. And I'm just going to grab and select out the area that I want. There we go. And then I'm going to scale that and kind of start trying to get it to fit where I know my selection is. And so just don't be afraid to, scale it a little bit so that it can go where you want it to go. We can feather the edges a little bit too. know, and then the other thing that we can do is we can kind of color correct this to match our shot. Let's see, I'm going to start with levels. So kind of taking some of the midtones out. I'm going to drop the input white point a little bit and just kind of start to get this closer. Obviously, we need to do some work on getting it to match. The lighting's a little bit different on both sides, but this will work for now. There we go. All right, now, if all goes well, which it almost never does, we should be able to tell Mocha where we want our tracking data to go, right? So I want it to go to image 1312, right? So I have export option set to transform, layer to export to, image 1312, source, we're just going to call it source, and we're going to say apply to export. Did it actually do anything? No. Oh, wait, did it? No, of course. Why would it do anything? All right, that's great. So I remember why I did this. I had the same problem before. So by default, After Effects in Mocha doesn't actually select the layer that you click on. So like, even though I clicked on this and I said, okay, make tracking data from this, because I didn't have this little gear selected at the left, it didn't do any of that stuff. So make sure that you have the little gear selection at the left-hand side of the layer that you actually want to create tracking data from. Then click OK, and hey, lo and behold, it did things. Wow, unbelievable.
So, do that again?
Yes, do that again. Do that part again. All right, and now if I want to export this tracking data to the layer that I'm working on, I should be able to select image 1312, tell it source. I just want to use the transformation options and say apply export. And it did it, and let's see if it actually looks right. It moved my footage for whatever reason. Okay, so I kind of see what it did. So let's do this. Did it give us... Okay, so it didn't muck with our anchor points. All right, so I know why it did this. It did this because it applies the tracking data to the center of the image that you're working on, right? So what I'm doing now is I'm just adjusting the position of this with the anchor point tool. And now if I play this out, we should be pretty close. And we are. We're going to try our secondary method here. We're going to go with the camera track method. So I created a new composition with the footage that we pre-selected in it. And we're going to go ahead and track this out with the camera tracker that is built into After Effects and see if we can get a better result. The result we got before is a little bit hokey. You can see that it's kind of floating over the surface there and needs a little help. So we're going to try this a different way. Let's go camera track. And then let's right click on our footage and say track camera. Did you change any of the settings before you started letting it run in the background, or did you just let it do its thing?
I let it do its thing.
Okay. We're going to let it do its thing. We've set up the 3D camera tracker, and then what it does is it's going to give you all of these little dots, which you can see right here. You can change the track point size so you can see those inside of the 3D camera tracker. There's a bunch of these little trackers right in here, and all I did was select a few of them, and then I right clicked and I said create camera and null, and it created a null object, which is this null object right here, and it created a 3D camera to match what we got going on. So then let's do the other thing. Let's take and bring in our image. Go ahead, Riley.
My analysts saw fails.
Yeah, so mine just.
Oh, fun. What resolution are you guys at? Full? Half?
Half.
And it failed.
Yep.
Try again.
Might work in full.
Try it in full as well. That can make a difference. I believe it tracks off whatever resolution you have set in your comp. So it may make sense to try that at full resolution.
Oh, I had it in order. Is he gonna get rid of that red bar?
What kind of layer is the 3D tracking camera layer?
That's just a camera.
That's just a camera.
Yep. You do need that camera in order for this to work the right way. So the next step we need to do is we need to take our footage and we need to make our footage 3D, which we have done. And then we can kind of position our footage where we want it to be. I'm going to go ahead and make a quick selection around where I kind of want my snow to be. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick whip it to the track null. Hopefully this will work. Yeah, it's totally not working. Of course, why would it work? Sean, what'd you do different?
What?
What'd you do different?
It's position.
Next thing we're going to do is we're going to record, we're going to do some additional Mocha tracking and pinning, corner pinning, to replace these graphical areas on the wall of this specific shot. I've already got my footage in. I got it trimmed down to its in and its out. And then we're going to go in and we're going to track this bad boy. Okay, so here we go. I think one thing that'll help is to actually have something to put in there. So I'm going to just grab a picture of something. Do we have any pictures? Your PSA is even easier because there's no motion in it whatsoever. Well, hell, we've got these pretty pictures up already. Let's just interface. Okay, yeah, this is perfect. That looks like some kind of futuristic thing. We'll use that. This will be the thing we pin into the corner. Oh, is this Adobe stock footage? Boo. Pexels, man. That was Pexels, actually. Sponsored by Adobe stock.
Yeah, they'll do that. They'll give you 10 free images if you sign up right now.
I don't want to. I don't want to sign up.
Hey, man, just giving you an option.
I know. Digital interface. All right, we're going to find a quick image that we can use. We're going to say open image in new tab. Should pull the image up. It's relatively small, but we're going to use it anyway. Going to save it to, yep, that'll work. Interface. JPEG. Save it. All right, so we have our picture and we have our interface where we want what we want to replace with this. So I'm going to bring that image in real quick. Where are we? Right here, interface JPEG, and that is now in our project. Okay, so I'm just going to put that in and drop that on top here for now. And I'm going to shut it off, and then we're going to select our footage that we want to track. We're going to say track in Boris FX Mocha. We're going to click on the Mocha interface, and now we've got our image. So for this one, it should go relatively simply. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I'm going to get real close to the edges. So I'm going to go here, 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 and here, and I'm going to hit the right click, and then I'm just going to pull the edges all the way out to the corner. I'm going to be relatively precise with my selection. And I'm also going to select all the points, move over to my edge, and I'm going to pull my edges out just a little bit. Okay, I can't select all the points. I'm gonna select one point at a time then. Pull the edges out a little bit so they're nice and soft. In case I want to use this matte. It's not going to have a super harsh selection to it. Okay, so there we go. And then if we go ahead and we add in our corner pinning data, so this is our corner pinner, show planar surface. That's going to be where it pins the corner pinning data. So I'm going to make this pretty close to perfect. I'm going to zoom in quite a bit and make sure that this is pretty much spot on with where our selection is for our matte.
There's another function that they could add.
Yeah, I like that it would know that.
Yeah.
Where's that AI?
5-10 years.
Max. 5-10 years max. All right, cool. So there we go. Now we track this thing out, make any adjustments we need to make. Here we go. Let's track it and see what happens. We should be tracking perspective as well, but we're just going to roll with it for now. Looks like it's doing a pretty damn good job. Yep, it's doing a great job.
Mocha seems to be better with like still imagery than fucking moving people.
Yep, it's a planar thing. It likes planes of data. Which is why in that little tutorial we watched, you're like, think of it as planes.
Well, I saw a video this week where they were like holding a screen, they replaced what was on the screen with some shit. And I was like, yeah, it's definitely not what I had to do.
Too right. Okay, so we've got our crap pretty much tracked. It looks like it needs a little help in a couple spots, like right over here in the corner. Right there. We'll pull in just a little bit. I'm honestly like okay with where things are at. I'm gonna just run this and we'll see what happens. Okay, so we've got that. Let's go back over to After Effects. We want to save this. And then what we're gonna do is go into our tracking data, create tracking data from our layer 1, which we want to click the little gear on to select. Selects it, creates the tracking data. So export options, corner pin. I want to do corner pin plus support motion blur. Export the layer 2 interface. And let's go ahead and click apply export. Did it do it? Oh, maybe I turn it on and then I'll know. It did. Let's get rid of corner pin 2. And where did it go? Oh, it's way the hell down there. Why is it way the hell down there? Yes. So in order to make this work the right way, we gotta finagle it some more. Because it's not just gonna put the corners where we want the corners. It's just not, because for whatever reasons, Boris Effects can't tell it to look at the corners of something and make it work the right way. So let's do this. Let's make a new sequence that's the same size as our original sequence. So new composition, 3094 by 3074. Let's actually make sure we're working in the right project size here. We're 4096 by 2160. So we're going to create a new composition, 4096 by 2160. And I don't know exactly how long this thing is. I'm just going to guess that it's right. I'm going to bring that comp 1 in here, and then I'm going to put my interface graphic in that comp 1. And I'm going to scale it way up so that it fits the corners. Okay, now this should work. So we have our corner pin data. We want to apply that corner pin data plus motion blur to comp 1, apply an export, and then lo and behold, it actually works. Let's see how well the track holds up. I'm going to go at quarter resolution. And it supports motion blur, so let's have it do motion blur on top of that, because we got motion blur on our camera for sure.
That's pretty cool. If we were to do all of those images, we have to do a comp for each one.
Yes.
That makes sense.
If you're going to do all the images, do a comp for each one. And here's the other kind of tricky, stupid thing. What we're doing is we're taking a square image like this one for the square stair warning thing that they have, and we're going to, well, first we're going to center it. So I'm going to use the align tool to center this, and then we're going to scale this up until it kind of fits like right here-ish. And then in order for this to actually look square, you have to distort the stupid thing. Man, I really hope Adobe and Boris watch this at some point so they can hear me gripe about their software not being straightforward. All right, so we're gonna go back to our original comp. You can see this is sticking over the top. We don't care about that. We're gonna come back in here, go back into Mocha. We need to go back into Mocha at full resolution, which it should just do that automatically. And we're gonna click on it, and then we're gonna do the next layer. So we've got the first layer. Let's name this. Okay, so this is left interface. Cool. All right, great. Now we're going to create a new layer with the X-spline tool, and we're going to zoom in, Z to zoom in. And let's go to the beginning of our comp 2. And why the hell can't I go to the beginning of my comp?
Click the select tool. You can't do it with the.
Can't do it with the
No.
X-spline tool? I'm shaking my head. Okay, so same type of deal. Come in here, make a pretty close selection. I'm going to select all the points and just pull the corners out like so, and then I'm going to get in there, like really, really in there, and get this as close as I can. And I'm going to set this so that I don't want it to pick both. I want it to just pick this. There we go. Getting super nitty gritty on this selection. Zoom back out, and then let's track this out. Hopefully Meredith doesn't walk in front of it. If she does, we're gonna have a little more work to do. Here we go. We tracked it in. We've got our stair screen now, and we're gonna do the same pinning deal. Let's go in here and set our pins where we need them to be. Oh, we don't want to do that though. And it's going to put the image right where the pins are. So in a way, it might make more sense to actually select a little beyond what you're rotoing, so that your selection's a little wider than your actual corner pin is, because now we got to get way the hell in there and try to overlap this stuff and make it look halfway decent. So I'm basically going to come right in here, do this for each point. We should be good anywhere we go in here now. Yep. Corner pin is pretty dang close. It looks like there's a little bit of finagling that I could do on the actual track. I'm not going to worry about that right now. I'm just going to get this thing going. All right, so I already named the layer stair screen.
Are you recording again?
No, yes, I am recording. I'm going to save this real quick, and then we're going to hop back into After Effects. Okay, so we've got our interface square that we've already set up in a 4096 comp. And we now need to go ahead and create track data for the stair screen. Click OK. And then corner pin data with supported motion blur. And we're going to the interface square, and we're applying that export. And voila. There it goes. We can turn on motion blur for that layer. And if we play this back, I'm going to go back to quarter res. Play this back. Should be nice and sticky. And have motion blur on it, which is awesome. All right, so now let's do the hard one. Okay, so I want to do this one over here on the right-hand side as well. This is another instance of it's going to stretch whatever you design for this. So this looks like an 11 by 17 kind of like A4 sized rectangular deal. I'm just going to take what I have over here on the left and do it there. But first what I want to do is I want to create the mat for the foreground, because you can see in the foreground of this, Meredith does pass over. She does pass over that for a brief moment. So when we track this, what we'll do is we'll track backwards. We'll start at the back, work forward. It should have enough pixels to do all the tracking work and corner pinning work without us having to go in and finagle it. But we need to create the foreground right here for those few frames in the beginning. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this .mov file and stick this on top. And I'm going to call this Meredith foreground mat. There we go. And then we're going to take this and we're going to go back into Mocha. I'm going to keep cancel that. Come on, really? All right, go back into Mocha. We're still working on our same on the same project, and then let's just go create a nice little spot for Meredith's shoulder. And we only need to go a little ways. We don't need to go very far with it. So I'm going to kind of find the spot where she's the most kind of angled towards the camera. I'm going to start there. I'm going to track backward and forward from that point. So I'm at 849 frames right now. Let's go ahead and grab an X-spline tool and then not be able to move where we want to move. Because why? Who knows? Okay, here we go. X-spline tool. We don't need much. I'm going to try to just kind of take from up here around her shoulder. And again, think of it in planes. There we go. And then I'm also going to work the edges as well. So I'm going to pick the inner edge and I'm going to zoom way in here and I'm just going to soften this ever so slightly. So I'm going to take the edge and soften it. And I'm probably going to readjust this just a little bit. So that that softened edge is actually within the border of her shirt. So pick both. I'm just going to drag this back a little bit, drag this back a little bit. Yep, and that's pretty much what we need right there. We don't need to worry about any of the other edges on any of the other sides because we're not going to see it. If you want to turn on the, where is it? The actual layer outlines. No, the layer overlays. Where the heck is that thing? There we go. There's the layer mat. You can also scrub this down or up for transparency. So if you want to see less of this, you know, hopefully the little roto thingamajiggy will work for you. Holy buckets. Looks pretty good. Okay, so then all we need to do is track backward and forward. So let's go ahead and track backwards. I'm going to let it finish and then I'm going to adjust. I'm going to zoom in here. Adjust. Adjust. Can see the edge got pretty big right there because there's a bunch of motion blur because she's actually moving pretty well. So I'm going to kind of adjust this a little bit more. There we go. Bring that in a little bit. Pick the edge, play with the edge. Shift Command B looks like the quick command to move between these different selections. Okay, there we go. And then I'm just going to kind of check this and make sure that it's working okay. It looks like I need to kind of go in the middle and do a middle work here too. It's getting a little confused. It doesn't know what to look at. There we go. Cruise forward a little more. All right, so now we need to track that direction just far enough so that when her arm clears this picture, we'll have a good mat. That's all we need. Tracking forward. And we stop. We don't need any more than that. Go in, go back a couple frames. Right there is kind of the end of the line for this track, so I'm going to come in here and adjust all this stuff. Make this relatively close. Now if we scrub backwards, we should have a pretty good track, which we do. This spot looks like it needs to be fixed just a little bit. There we go. Yeah, it got way confused over here. Better. Okay, groovy. All right, so we have our mat now for her, which is going to work out great. So let's save this, close down Mocha, come back in here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into mat. I'm going to say view mat, showing us all three mats. All I want, oh, it doesn't. All I want is that layer 4. I don't need the other ones. So that's all set up. Let's do that, and then let's duplicate our initial layer one more time, and what we'll do is the same technique we've used before. We'll just use a Luma mat right here, which is going to give us a nice little foreground for Meredith. And now we can go ahead and track that box in the back. So there we've got that set up. Let's go track the box in the back. Go back into Mocha. Pops this all open, and then again we're going to start at the back end of the project rather than at the front. Get in with our X-spline tool, start selecting things without it working. Zoom in first, I guess. Then select the X-spline tool and try again. Just doing kind of rough at first, then we'll go in and fine tune. I'm going to select all the corners, pull them tight. So that's Command A to select all, and then I'm going to come in here and just adjust these so they're nice and snug to the edge. Do select all. I'm going to try to add, just set a little edge width on both of these so that there's a little bit of a blur on the edge of these selections, just like there is in the actual shot. And I'm going to readjust here a little bit. All right, groovy. And then we'll track backwards, and it should do most of this tracking with little or no trouble. Save this real quick and track backwards. And we'll save you from having to watch all this. I'm doing its track. I'm just going to take a quick peek at this, roll through, make sure everything looks like it's in pretty good shape. It really does. It looks like it held its position really well. I can't really see that lower right-hand corner, but I'm just going to trust that it's correct. Or I'll just go, I'll roll past and just check right here. Looks good. So now let's go in and add the corner pin. I'm going to do the corner pin at the very end where we set the data up. So there's our corner pin tool. Come in here, get this right down where it needs to be. And same thing with the last one. Get this right down where it needs to be. Okay, cool beans. Now we should be in good shape. I'm just going to scrub across this and check to make sure that quarter pin's looking pretty, and it is. So we are good there. I'm going to save this, close out the interface for Mocha, and then we're going to go ahead and create a new interface box for that. So again, we need to create a new composition. Interface right tall. 4096 by 2160, okay. And then we bring our image in that we're using for that. So the image that we're using for this one is this same interface, but this time we're going to go tall with it. So let's pretend that we wanted to make this go the tall way, right? So let's pretend that we designed this in a tall rectangle, and now we need to squish it to fit our 4096 by 2160 square. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. I'm going to rotate this 90 degrees as if we created this tall, and then what we have to do is scale it to fit. So interface, I'm going to set this to center first, and then I'm going to use the scale tool to get it stretched up to where it fits the top. Then we're going to unlink the scale tool and stretch it out so that it fits the wide way. See, this is honestly that you should not have to do this garbage. You should not have to take stuff, stretch it out, and do all this rigmarole to make it fit a corner pin. Yeah, I'm talking to you, Boris Effects. All right. So there we go. We got our corner pin set up. Where the heck is the solid or the composition? It's in this mess over here on the left-hand side. Interface right tall. Let's bring that in. We're going to put it underneath Meredith right here. You can see there's her arm that we rotoed out. And then we're going to go back into our initial track, and we're going to say corner pin interface. We're going to interface tall. We're going to create our track data, which is not stair screen, but layer 4, which I should have named. And then we're going to apply that corner pin data to interface right tall. Bada bing, bada boom. Let's turn on motion blur for that layer. And now we should be sitting pretty. We play this back not in full res. Looks like there's a little bit of float on it. You can kind of see the side edge there. That might not be the worst thing ever. Gives it a little bit more 3D look. But that's what Mocha's real bread and butter is like doing this kind of stuff where you've got good easy planes where you can track, like if you needed to replace any video inside TV screens or whatever, it's really good for doing that stuff. Planar tracker. So yeah, we're gonna wrap it up there tonight, folks. The nice thing is she only overlaps about, I don't know, maybe 10 frames at the beginning. If we really wanted to fix this so that we don't see that kind of edge over there, we could probably just come in here and scale this up a touch. Except it's using its scale, so.
Would you have to go back into the track then?
I don't think.
You're gonna scale it up on there? Or then
I think I'm just going to honestly leave it alone. You can see that scale's popping around a little bit. I mean, if we wanted to, we could maybe scooch it to the left a little bit. Like grab the anchor point and then just nudge it a little bit, like so. See if that fixes us. You can see it over on the other side. I mean, honestly, I'd retrack it so that it tracks clean and we've got a good clean track across all of it. I kind of skipped some steps to get to the final part where we could actually see the overlapping part of her arm at the beginning. And that does look pretty good. I can't decide whether or not it's actually taking the blurring that we did into effect on the mat. Okay, it is. Yeah, you can see it's really subtle. It's right there, though. Turn that back off so we can see it. Yeah, you can see. You can make out the little blurry part right there. It's pretty nice. Cool, cool. You're not going to notice it anyway, so come back this far. Could soften it up a little bit if we needed to, but that is basically it.